I'm going to show you how to make this type of face mask today. I call it the origami face mask. It's a pattern that I've adjusted from C. Kate Sew. She calls it the 3D face mask. Here's 3 different sizes. This is the little kid, the big kid, and the adult small. She also gives you an adult medium, but I'll show you. They're just slightly different sizes from each other. So I use the little kid for my 5-year-old. He's a pretty small 5-year-old. My big kid for my 8-year-old. I have actually worn a big kid one before too. I wouldn't want to wear it all day, but it works. And adult small is the size that I make for most teenagers and adults. I've made an adult large size for my husband. But the very first thing I do is make sure that whatever fabric I'm going to use has been washed and dried as hot as it can be. So if it's going to shrink, it's done all of its shrinking already. I've ironed the fabric, and then since I need to cut 2 of my pattern, I'm just folding it in half, right sides together. When you're cutting, it doesn't matter if it's right sides together, but I'm going to sew it right sides together anyway. So I just start with it that way so I can keep it that way. So I'm going to trace around the outside of this fabric, of this pattern, and then cut it out. And I am just going to use a regular pencil to do it. So I have my 2 pieces cut out, and I have them lying right sides together. I am going to stitch. I'm going to leave this side and this side open for now. So I'm going to stitch along the diagonals, the top, the diagonal, and make sure I do a back stitch. And then this diagonal, the bottom, and this diagonal. And I like to do like a really small seam allowance, like a 1/4 inch. Okay, so I just clipped these corners up to the seam allowance, but I didn't clip through the thread. And then I turned it right side out, and then used something to push out the edges. So I just use this paintbrush I have around. You can use a pencil, anything to push that out. Now I'm going to iron it flat and iron in these open edges. I don't measure exactly how much. It's maybe a little bit more than a 1/4 inch that I fold in on each side. Ironed my face mask and ironed in these raw edges on either side. You can see how much I ironed them in. It's not really important that you do it an exact amount. This is the part that's going to be closest to your ear. So if you fold in more, it's just not going to get as close to your ear, but it will still fit. So just do as much as works for you. Now, the next step is going to be to sew around the entire face mask. And as I do that, I'm going to sew on my elastics on each side. I'm also going to sew in a piece of wire at the top. I used to only put wire in face masks for people who had glasses, but it's so easy and simple to do that now I just do wire in all the face masks I make. I like to use jewelry wire. I just found this I think I found this one at Walmart or something. So that's what I like to use. I have tried pipe cleaner before, but the pipe cleaner is not strong enough to hold its shape, and it gets all bunchy and gross when you launder them, and it's not even worth the effort to put it in. It doesn't make a big enough difference. So ditch the pipe cleaner and do something like jewelry wire, or maybe you found something even better. So here's my piece that I'm ready to put in. I have done the majority of the wires. I cut them at 3 inches. I just use these needle nose pliers. I cut them at 3 inches and then fold in the sides so that they don't poke people. But I am experimenting with doing them 2.5 inches because my husband mentioned that they were like a little bit longer than the bridge of his nose, and he thought it would work better if it just did the bridge of his nose. So we're trying 2.5 inches to see if that's better. So before I sew it, I want to make sure that I get this piece of wire centered. So I just fold this, match up those corners, and then just kind of press here to make a little crease. So I know where my center is. And then since I'm doing 2.5 inch wire, half of that is 1 1/4. So I'm gonna line up 1 1/4 with that crease, and then I'll mark at the beginning and at 2.5. So when I sew, when I put my wire in, I know where to put it. Okay, so I've sewn around the edges of this. Notice by the wire, I've done a stitch all the way to the edge here and here to make sure that my wire doesn't move out of place. And then in the places where I've sewn in my elastic, usually I back stitch over that. So it actually gets sewn over 3 times because forward, back, and then forward. I do that just so that they don't come out. I think it's probably unnecessary though. You probably don't really need to do that. So my next step is going to be to fold and iron this to get it ready for the next sewing. So I'm going to fold it down so that it's folded close to this corner but not all the way to the corner, and iron it, and then do the same on this side. Folded it and ironed it. I want these to be straight and parallel to each other, but I didn't go quite all the way to the corners. If you don't feel comfortable like eyeballing it, you can use CK Sew's pattern. She has a line to show you where to fold it. I just found it's a lot faster for me to just do it, and it's okay if it's off by a little bit. So now I'm going to take my machine and I'm going to sew near the edge down here and along this edge as well. Sometimes I just leave my zipper foot on and do it with that one because it doesn't really matter which foot you have. Alright, I've done my stitch along the top and the bottom of the face mask. So now comes the origami part. We're going to open it up and pin it down. This is the only place I use pins on this particular pattern. Oh, and putting in the nose wire. But we're going to pin it down. I'm going to try to get this corner to touch this edge, and I want this line to be as close to perpendicular to this edge as I can get it. So I'm going to match it up like that and then pin it. So you can see I've pinned it into place. I'm not exactly perpendicular, but I'm close. This is the side with the nose wire, so I just bent the wire, and I'm going to line up this other side, match it up with what I already pinned, and just use that matching, and then I can pin it on this side as well. And I'm going to repeat that process with the bottom flap, and then we will just sew these flaps down. Okay, so I've sewn down these flaps in all 4 spots. This is what it looks like from the front. You just have a stitch there and there. So my next step is going to be to trim all of my pieces of thread, and you can do that as you go if you want. I just do it all at the end. I feel like it's faster that way. And then I'm going to put those cordons on, and I'll show you how to do that because it's not easy if you don't know a little trick. So I put one of the cordons on here. I'm going to put the second one on. So these have an end with a bigger opening and an end with a smaller opening. I'm going to stick this bobby pin through my elastic like this, and then put that bobby pin through the bigger opening of my cord end and push it through the smaller end, and then use that to pull the elastic through the cord end, and it goes on pretty fast. The cordons I found on Amazon. You can get them in packs of like 50, 100, or 200. This, I got a big spool of elastic on Amazon as well. And then I think I've gotten the jewelry wire from Walmart or Joann's Fabrics. But here is our finished origami face mask. wire in the nose. It takes me about 20 minutes.